I began to realize that there were a great many great masters who were known to have vision impairments, and it was quite obvious that those vision impairments could have an influence on their great contribution to art history. Now, that was a boon, that was a plus, and a good shot in the arm, and a lot of encouragement. And also, I wondered what other artists in this country were doing who were losing their vision to eye disease, or who may have been born without vision. And it was at that time that I wanted to begin communicating with other artists around the country. I had an eye problem, and I was an artist. There had to be others out there. How many, I didn't know. And it was a long 10 hours jurying and selecting 54 works for the Art of the Eye exhibition.
The Art of the Eye, an exhibition of work of visually impaired artists from throughout the country, has been shown in Knoxville and Nashville, and it will travel around the country for the next few years. When the show opened at Nashville's University Club, I talked with Scott Nelson for Tennessee Kaleidoscope. He's a sculptor from Minneapolis and is the project director for Art of the Eye, a collection of 54 works, including drawings, paintings, photography, sculpture, and ceramics, all focusing on the nature of vision and the role it plays in the creative process.
The criteria was that the artist be a professional working artist and have gallery experience, but also have a vision impairment that affects the creative process. And we were challenging these artists to create new works or to give us existing works that would show how it is they perceive the world through their eyes, so that we could better understand the effect that glaucoma might have, or retinitis pigmentosa, or cataracts, and begin to take a look at that process of art that calls on vision for its completion or for its realization. And the resulting exhibit, Art of the Eye, is marvelous in many ways. In one of those ways, it points up how valid poor vision can be, and it also inspires in all of us with vision a great appreciation for the miracle of sight. But I think above all it shows that vision impairments and maybe even disabilities in general can be a very inspiring influence on the creative process.
You certainly found that so.
Yeah.
Personally,
Yes,
I know.
personally. I have tunnel vision, about a 10-degree visual field.
What has been the response of the public, people who have come to the shows or people that you talk with about it?
They have not only appreciated their own vision, but they have marveled at the validity of the perspectives that people with poor vision do have. And it begins to blow away some of the stereotypes that we all have about the blind. There's only one painter in this exhibit who is totally blind, and that is Crystal Monaco from Morristown, New Jersey, and he began painting after he lost all his vision. He is, of course, drawing imagination into the creative play, and he has technique and editorial help, so to speak, but he also has a psychic ability to pick out colors that he wishes to use. He's now doing psychic portraits of individuals. He'll sit down with you and he'll hover his hand above his box of pastels and just pick what feels right, he says. On the other hand, there have been painters who, before Art of the Eye came along, were struggling to portray the world as they thought it should look, or as their friends with better vision were seeing the world and describing to them how maybe things could be touched up a little bit here or there. But when Art of the Eye came along, we gave everybody tacit permission to go ahead and paint the world as they see it, because that's valuable, it's bona fide, it's genuine, and we care about that perspective. So these people have not reverted to that old way of painting, but are now painting the world joyously and freely as they see it and as they please and feel.
Scott Nelson has hopes that through shows such as The Art of the Eye, more works by vision-impaired artists will be sought after by collectors and galleries, because these works tell of unique and new ways to view the world around us. This program, Tennessee Kaleidoscope, made possible with the joint support of the National Endowment for the Arts, the Tennessee Arts Commission, and the WPLN Educational Foundation. This is Lynn Folk.
The collection, the Netherland Inn collection, is fantastic. It's really worth seeing. One of our constant remarks is, Well, I didn't know we had anything like this in Kingsport, which is I think people don't really realize that it's there, that there's that much there. The Netherland ladies, they were marvelous lace makers. All the Netherland girls learned how to make lace, and they were all musicians. They played the piano, and James, the son, was an accomplished violinist. They were fine horsemen, and some of the furnishings are just really remarkable.
Muriel Spoden, chairman of the museum committee for the Netherland Inn House Museum Complex. This historic inn on the Holston River at King's Boatyard in Kingsport was once the stopover for stagecoaches on the Great Stage Road, and its tavern with its tap room was a place of entertainment for about 100 years. The inn is now filled with reminders of those days when it was owned by Richard Netherland and his family. On a visit to the now restored Netherland Inn, one sees some of the 18,000 artifacts collected from recent archaeological digs there, and more than 3,000 items given by descendants of early settlers, including costumes and furniture. One piece made by Tennessee's first architect.
Thomas Hope was Tennessee's first architect. And as you know, architects in those days designed houses, but they also designed furniture. And this is a beautiful high chest that is a beautiful thing that he designed and owned. He was here at the time, I think he built it. In fact, he died here. He's buried here in an unmarked grave, I'm sorry to say.
There are copies of 2 portraits by Tennessee's first portraiture artist, Samuel Shaver, and among the original paintings, one that is very, very old.
Well, in the painting line, we do have an oilcloth painting that's very, very early. And I didn't realize until just recently that those are so very old. I didn't realize that oilcloth was that old. And
What do you mean oilcloth? The kind of oilcloth that we used to put on tables and things like that? And this was a painting done on oilcloth.
And they used oilcloth to roll out their pastries too. And but it way predates the inn. I mean, it's very, very early. Then we have 2 lovely. Well, one of them's just Currier, and then we have another Currier and Ives. And we have several hand-painted things. All the ladies, learned to paint. All the fine ladies of the South, that was one of the things they were taught, was painting. And also needlework. We have a marvelous costume collection. We have over 300 costumes.
Do you have any specific costumes there that were maybe something worn on a special occasion?
Oh, yes. We have wedding dress. We have a beautiful wedding dress. That was Maggie Netherland's. And, of course, handmade. Like I say, the Netherland ladies were very talented. And then both Maggie Netherland's and her daughters, second day dresses. The second day dress was the gown or ball gown that was worn the day after your marriage when the groom's family gave a party. We found that the family saved the clothes if there was a tragic death, like Molly Netherlands, for instance. She died a very young girl. She was Maggie's sister, younger sister, and she died, I think it was 1872, by a fall from a horse, and she was engaged to be married, and we have her riding habit that she was wearing at that time. It makes a really interesting exhibit in a number of her clothes, which and a lot of Maggie Netherland's clothes. They're just beautiful. They're the Godey, the Godey prints. They're that style with the flounces and the the large bustles and the big underskirts and things like that. They're overdresses, actually. It's a skirt with an overdress, and we have a lot of those.
Well, it's so fortunate that those were saved.
Yes, it really was.
Muriel Spoden of Kingsport, who's an artist and a writer, in addition to being chairman of the museum committee for the Netherland Inn. She has numerous paintings to her credit, and she's the author of many books and articles focusing on Kingsport and the surrounding area. This program, made possible with the joint support of the National Endowment for the Arts, the Tennessee Arts Commission, and the WPLN Educational Foundation. For Tennessee Kaleidoscope, this is Lynn Folk. Tennessee Kaleidoscope with the sounds of Hammie Nixon, his kazoo and his jug band. Hammie was one of the greatest performers in old-time blues music. His recording career began in the 1920s and continued through 1984 when he died. In 1929, Hammie and Sleepy John Estes traveled from their home in Brownsville, Tennessee, to Memphis to record for the Victor Talking Machine Company. Later, they went on international tours. Over the years, many of Hammie's musical partners died, and in the late 1970s, his guitar backup and close friend was Dr. David Evans, ethnomusicologist and a professor of music at Memphis State University, who produced these recordings for the High Water Recording Company of Memphis.
Hammie played in an old-style blues characteristic of the 1920s and 1930s, really, but he still had many fans and can draw large crowds at concerts. He performed in his last years in what you would call a jug band style, playing the lead instruments, switching off between harmonica, kazoo, and jug, and of course singing. This was a style that was characteristic of many of the southern cities in the 20s and the 30s, especially Memphis. There were a number of famous jug bands, some of whom recorded in the 20s and 30s.
Hammie and his jug band played in Memphis a lot, played the World's Fair in Knoxville. They went to Chicago and St. Louis to record, and they gave concerts in Europe and in Japan.
He spoke of Japan very often and was very fond of that country, often wore a kimono top at his shows that he had been given in Japan. We played at one festival in Netherlands in 1980, and then we toured France for a couple of weeks in 1983. Well, it was a very large festival in Netherlands. We were the opening act and got a good response there. And of course, he had been in Europe many times before with Sleepy John Estes, starting I think in 1963 or 64. And in France, we were very well received. In one town of about 2,000 people, little town out in the country, we drew about 450 to a concert. That was almost a quarter of the population of the town.
Is this the kind of music that you hear on Beale Street in Memphis now, or was there a time when he played in the early days of Beale Street?
He used to play on Beale Street, usually for tips, play out in the park with jug bands and so on. Now you can hear some older musicians on Beale Street and also traditional musicians, generally playing for tips, either in Handy Park or in front of the Old Daisy Theater or in front of or in the patio of the 1 Minute Cafe near 4th and Beale. In the clubs, you will usually hear bands playing electric blues and so on. Hammie had done a little of that. Basically, he played in an older pre-electric style.
Hammie Nixon's life was a series of ups and downs, hoboing, and doing odd jobs in West Tennessee in order to make a living. When he died in 1984, crowds came to his funeral in Brownsville, and the mourners themselves sang some of Hammie's tunes. Here's one they were all familiar with.
It was all spirituals. We sang his song, Holy Spirit, Don't Leave Me. It was well known by people in town. Hundreds of friends there. I guess he knew virtually everyone in town, maybe except some of the younger people.
This program, with Dr. David Evans, ethnomusicologist at Memphis State University, made possible with the joint support of the National Endowment for the Arts, the Tennessee Arts Commission, and the WPLN Educational Foundation. For Tennessee Kaleidoscope, this is Lynn Folk.
May the good Lord bless you. Thank you. May He keep you. Until we meet again, thank you, Lord. Thank you.
We're actually celebrating our 68th season. It started in 1919 and was incorporated in 1921 and has operated continuously, never closed down, even during the Depression or the Second World War. Continued on a regular basis, 6, 7, whatever, productions a season. I came here in 62. We were not in this building. We were in the Pink Palace Museum, very cramped. It became very cramped anyway. And in 1975, we opened here in this, what I think is a beautiful facility.
Sherwood Lohrey, executive producer of Theater Memphis, one of the oldest community theaters in the United States, and it has received numerous awards, local, national, and international. When I talked to Sherwood Lohrey for Tennessee Kaleidoscope, he stressed the contribution that volunteers had made to augment efforts of staff and performers in this community theater.
It's an avocational theater, is what I'd like to call it. The past few seasons have been wonderful. We have a group of retirees, specifically men who are wonderful in the shop. They do wonderful carpentry work, and without them, I don't know what we'd do, because they really are the mainstay of getting the sets built, and they love it. And I get such a charge out of talking with them and watching them, and they love what they're doing. They're very proud of what they do, and it's a wonderful way to use your time when you're retired and you may have a lot of time on your hand, and to come over, and there's a lot of camaraderie.
Were most of these people involved in the theater in one way or another?
Not at all. Not at all before. In fact, one of the gentlemen whom I know quite well didn't like theater, and his wife would come to the theater, and he wouldn't come with her. I can't remember what the particular project was, but he came out one time to do something, and he's stayed ever since. And he just loves it. He's very dependable, and he comes 3 times a week, I think, all day long.
Did a group from this theater go to Ireland and receive an award there?
Yes, we've been very active in the international theater scene. We have taken productions to Calgary, Canada, as part of the International Olympiad, and a producer saw that production in Calgary and invited us to take part in the Dundalk, Ireland Festival, which is held every May. And we took that same production, which was Tintypes, to Dundalk. That's a competitive festival. The Calgary was not a competitive thing. In Dundalk, it was competitive, and there were 8 or 9 countries represented. It was very interesting, and we did get an award for Best Production, and I got an award for Best Producer, and it was a wonderful experience. We've also taken the production to Villach, Austria. Then we've been very active in the our own country's competition, which was called the Fact Festival, which has now been renamed Act Fest. And we've won several national awards and regional awards, and we took a production to Haines, Alaska. Sister Mary Ignatius, we took up there, and that was a wonderful experience. It's a wonderful experience for the actors and the crew people who are able to go to communicate with other people active, interested in theater from around the world or around our own country. And the camaraderie is really exciting.
In addition to the recognition Theater Memphis has received over the years, executive producer Sherwood Lohrey has been recognized personally with the Tennessee Theater Association's Distinguished Service Award in 1980, and more recently, the American Community Theater Association's Patron Award for long-term service to community theater in the United States. In 1985, the Gordon Holl Outstanding Arts Administrator Award was presented to him by the Tennessee Arts Commission. This program, Tennessee Kaleidoscope, made possible with the joint support of the National Endowment for the Arts, the Tennessee Arts Commission, and Johnson & Higgins of Tennessee, Incorporated, insurance brokers, and employee benefit consultants. This is Lynn Folk.
A theater person is a theater person forever. There's just something about theater that, what is it? It imitates life, but or maybe life as we'd like to have it. But there's just something wonderful about it. And for those of us who've never really grown up, the world of make-believe holds a very special call.
Sonja Young with the Little Theater of Chattanooga. As president of the Little Theater, she talked with me for Tennessee Kaleidoscope about her long-standing affection for theater, and especially her preference for community theater.
It doesn't matter what your vocation is, what your economics is. Nobody cares in this community theater environment. We like you for the person you are and for the fact that you're committed to theater just as the next person is. There's just this feeling of closeness that the best friends I've made in the 27 years I've lived in Chattanooga are the people that I have met here, because they're constantly changing and growing and expanding my life too, and the fact that we're committed to quality. And we're doing it ourselves. There's a lot of fun and satisfaction in seeing the results. Theater's exciting, Lynn. It's a chance to be something that maybe you can't be in real life. It's therapeutic for many of us, and it's just there's a rapport with the audience that I've been on television. There's no rapport with an audience there. The rapport with your audience, you can feel them caring and wanting and pulling for you. It's just delightful.
Sonja Young has been an actress and board member with the Little Theater of Chattanooga for a number of years, and in addition, in the Chattanooga area, she's known on TV and in print as the Purple Princess, because the only color in her life is purple. Her clothing, her cars, her house furnishings, all purple. She's used this color to good advantage in fundraising for her many projects, including establishing the Chattanooga Youth Theater, a natural for her because of her previous occupation as a child psychologist.
The value of purple was just inestimable because children respond statistically best to purple and red. Well, I don't look so good in red, and I love purple, so I would wear it on the days that I tested the children. I always loved it and felt best in it, and the children took to calling me the Purple Lady, and it just sort of stuck. And then Real People and PM Magazine did all these shows on, tapes on the Purple Lady, and then I began to use it when I wrote for the newspaper and was on television. I used that as just a nom de plume, whatever, an identity. And then I used it. The most important thing was to build or to found the children's theater, we called it then. It's now called the Youth Theater, with the Purple Princess. We're not using the Circle Theater and for anything but rehearsal and storage at the time, and occasionally someone would come on and do a play. But I just thought it was built originally as a youth theater, and we weren't using it for one, so I wrote a play called The Purple Princess, closed it out of my closet, and used the identity to promote it. And there's no question that it was very useful in promoting it through the community, because so many people knew who I was. I had worked with children for 18 years, as a child psychologist. So this play was very successful, and the board was very impressed, and they said, you can do some other plays. So I found 2 more directors, and we did Winnie the Pooh, volunteers, and we did Alice in Wonderland, and they were very successful. I had lots of kids, and what it showed us was that there was this huge need in this community because there was no theater for kids being done anywhere around here. The board gave me permission to raise money, and if I could raise the money and fund a program for 1 year and search for a director, that they would approve it. So I took a year of my life and I think we raised a little over $25,000, and a couple of us searched and wrote away for recommendations for a director for the youth theater, and we're very pleased with our program. So purple did have a positive effect. It's just fun, Lynn. It's a happy color. People laugh when they see it.
Well, do you ever wear anything else beside purple? Nothing.
Occasionally I'll wear another color with purple, but never. If I wanted to sneak around the community, I'd put on another color and no one would know who I was. I could go around and do all kinds of interesting things, I suppose. But I have 2 purple cars, and it's an identifiable. But I use it to raise money for organizations, whether it's the Little Theater or the Cancer Crusade. Anything that can help. If purple helps and attracts attention to the person who's asking for your support for something worthwhile, then I think it's okay.
Do you ever get tired of purple then?
Not so far. I don't think I can afford to. I have too big of an investment in it.
A conversation with Chattanooga's Purple Lady and Purple Princess at the Little Theater of Chattanooga. Now, in its 64th continuous season, it's one of the oldest community theaters in the South. This program, made possible with the joint support of the National Endowment for the Arts, the Tennessee Arts Commission, and the HCA Foundation, the philanthropic arm of Hospital Corporation of America. For Tennessee Kaleidoscope, this is Lynn Folk.
This is our fourth sculpture at a welcome center, and we have 10 welcome centers, so we hope someday to have one at each of those 10 welcome centers, but this is the first one to be dedicated since I've been in office this year. And there will be so many people coming into Memphis this summer for the Ramses exhibit, which is absolutely magnificent. There will be a lot of folks who will see this work as they come through this welcome center, and it certainly is a beautiful piece and fun for the adults and fun for the children. I think everyone will love it.
Sandra Fulton, Commissioner of the Tennessee Department of Tourist Development, at the Welcome Center on I-55, just outside of Memphis, as the sculpture piece Pyrodoptics was dedicated. This dedication was one of the events of Tennessee Tourism Week in May 1987. Pyrodoptics is a pyramid-shaped sculpture by Tom Wuchina, artist and instructor at the Memphis School of Art.
This work of art has unified so many people on many divergent levels from all walks of life and all phases of the government to enable us to allow art to give to the state of Tennessee something special at the gateway to Memphis. And I am honestly humbled by being the vehicle to help bring that together into fruition. It is a series of 100 painted aluminum pipes. Each pipe is painted 2 colors, one on each side. The entire pyramid is painted 4 colors. These are actual authentic Egyptian colors that I've researched at the Institute of Art and Archaeology at Memphis State University. As you drive or move down around the pyramid, it begins to change. Change is one of the constants in life, if not the only constant in life. And this pyramid incorporates that to aid in its illusion. It changes from one color to the next. It also changes in density. It becomes a very transparent object when you're looking down a perpendicular axis to the structure. And when you move off that perpendicular axis, it turns into a dense, linear, massive structure. So there is a constant change of structure, mass, and transparency, as well as changing 4 different colors as you drive down the interstate or walk by it or through it. These are generated into 3-dimensional optical illusions, environmental illusions that people are able to walk into and interact with. To get art off the walls, so they are not only allowed to touch it, but they experience on a totally different physical level. It gives them the ability to experience art and not be intimidated by it. They become an actual and integral part of the art by being able to participate, go inside, play with, and be part of.
And when you climb to the peak of this pyramid, you can look down into an infinity box, done with mirrors, made even more effective at night when neon lights are reflected in it. This is the 4th sculpture in a series of Welcome Center public art projects, and there are several reasons for these. Here's Bennett Tarleton, Executive Director of the Tennessee Arts Commission.
First of all, we certainly want to use this as an opportunity to highlight and to showcase the excellent artistic work being done by Tennessee artists, and in particular its sculptors. We also want to grab the visitors' attention and encourage them to come into the Welcome Center and get information that will be helpful to them while they're here. And in another sense, you know, the arts really speak to people in very special ways, and we think that it's a way to give what we call the warmest possible welcome to visitors to Tennessee. And of course, now that so many of us go to work on a day-to-day basis by using interstates, we hope it also is a reminder to our citizens that Tennessee is filled with a wonderful cultural life. Our artists are our greatest cultural resource, and this is a way to remember them and think about the visual arts. And you know how fond I am of saying that people just don't realize how much the arts are a part of their daily lives anyway, and this is a way for us to remind them.
Another feature of the Pyrodoptics dedication was the premiere presentation of Pyramid Suite, an original composition by Lynn Gillick Joyner, played by the Memphis Overton High Flute Choir. This program made possible with the joint support of the National Endowment for the Arts, the Tennessee Arts Commission, and the WPLN Educational Foundation. For Tennessee Kaleidoscope, this is Lynn Folk.